Hello, what's up? My name is Mario Pichardo. Today we're going to be talking specifically about um, turning your life around in a way that is, in a way that's permanent. Because, you know, a lot of things become, all right, I'm going to start something, then I stop for whatever reason. And I kind of do that enough times because I think it's going to be easy. I think I'm just going to be able to, you know, get up one day, do it, and my whole life's going to be different. I think that I can just kind of say, all right, that's it. It's over. I'm done being the person who can't lose weight. I'm just going to lose it with my own free will. I kind of don't really understand the mechanisms that keep you from achieving that. And a lot of those mechanisms are really just a feedback loop. That's all it is. It's it's it, it's kind of like a circle. Or think of like an Oroboros, where you have like two snakes eating each other's tails. You kind of have a circle. You kind of have a circle now, and there's two snakes. One of those snakes, that's eating the other snake's tail, is your emotions. And that's there to represent that whenever you do something, it's because you feel a certain way about it. And you get this feeling, you get this, whether it's a good feeling or a bad feeling. The bad feeling is what's keeping you from doing the things that you probably should do, but also keeps you from doing the things that are dangerous and harmful in some ways. And the good feelings get you to do the things that are sometimes good for you, but also sometimes pretty bad, like eating very sugary foods. And so that's kind of one of the snakes is that kind of emotional pattern that we have. And then the other is the thoughts that flow into our heads because of just let's just say for now, just because, the thoughts that we have, I went to school. The first thought that pops in my head is to go to the cafeteria, or the first thought is to meet up with my friends, or the first thought is to do and whatever else. And those thoughts are kind of what create our habits, but also the emotions are what create our habits, because we are naturally going to build habits towards things that feel good, naturally build habits away from things that feel bad. And then when you look at what a habit is, well, a habit is really just, uh, a character trait. It's a part of something that you are. There's something that you've done enough times to really become good at. And because of how your brain works, your brain loves to go the ways that you know how to do well. The things that you know best are going to be what your brain wants to do. And so those are really the two mechanisms, the emotions and the thoughts. And so that's to say, if we can kind of work intelligently from the thoughts, from the emotions, then we have a pretty solid system in terms of getting ourselves from point A to point B. So we need to just target in on those two guys and figure out how we can use either or. And really, because of how it works, with those two halves, and even before I continue, because this thought is popping into my head, the idea that, a lot of people go online and they learn about that. Okay, how to do this, how to do that, how to grow, how to, but they don't really have a good reasoning for why, because when you think about why you do anything, there's usually a reason behind it. And the reason is usually built behind emotion. It's built behind some kind of emotion. There's some tie to some kind of ideal that you want to bring out. Some people, they want to have a good relationship with their kids because that means something. There's a deep meaning there for them, deep fulfillment there for them. For some people, they want to have a better relationship with God. And for them, that's kind of the ideal by which they measure their actions. And well, yeah, people still do things like things against God, like sinning, because those also feel good. But in the grand scheme of their plan, they're falling out of touch with that. And so that's why people turn around and they say, well, why, how can I kind of fix this? How can I turn this around? Though we live in a culture that is used to getting things immediately, instantly, gratification. This I do, this I do, this. Everything's marketed now. Everything's freely available. That's what a free market has brought us. And so, while wonderful, instant gratification is not good for the long term. It teaches us to be easily distracted. It teaches us to kind of just look for the shortcuts and short hits. But changing the human physiology, changing how your neurons are firing is intensive. It's an intensive process. It doesn't have to be, but it's an intensive process when you consider how long it would take. We're not talking about something you can get in an hour. We're talking about something that's going to take a while. It could take months to really change yourself neurologically into the person you want to be. And then even more time after that to reinforce that. But everybody needs a why when they start. Everybody needs a reason to do it. And if you have a strong why for why you want to do something, that thing can carry you all the way through. It doesn't mean it will, but, a lot of our society, I think, is lacking in the meaning department. And so if you can find a reason why, a meaning to want to do better, to be better, and you take that and you internalize that, whatever that meaning is, find a real meaning behind the things that you do. And that can carry you the rest of the way through, but also give you real fulfillment in life. What a lot of people are looking for. Some people want to have really, really good relationships with their kids. Some people want to have 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 kids. And, when you ask them, why do you want to have so many kids? Because, I love kids. I want to reproduce. I had a big family growing up and I just want to have one now. Or I didn't have a big family growing up and so I want one now. And it's like, okay, but why can't you just have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 kids? Why do you have to have 20? And the person says, well, I don't know. I like kids. I want to have a big family. I want to be surrounded by, crazy kids. I want to be, have all these interactions, going to have all these. And then the deeper and deeper they dig down, answering the question, well, why? You eventually hit the emotion. And that's when they realize that, well, this person really thought that, the love was going to come from having all of these kids. The love, the recognition, the significance was going to come from achieving some higher level of some kind of success. And that it wasn't until they reached that point or had that they'd be able to be happy. And so that's kind of that moment where it clicks. And it doesn't mean you have to change your goal, but it's important to know why you want something. What's the real motivating factor? And when we have sort of a deep, concrete meaning that we're after, then you kind of can start to build the how-to on top of that. But keeping in mind that, listen, we live in a culture where our brains a lot of the time have very short attention spans because of the media, because of, all the distractions, because of all that stuff. And we kind of need to understand it's going to be a process. It's going to take time. And a lot of the time also, when we sit here and we kind of take in so much information from so many different sources, without realizing how long it would take just to implement one of them, months. Well, then it's kind of like, okay, they start something, stop it, start something else, stop that because it didn't work because they didn't really follow the program, start something else, stop that because it's just a cycle. And then that in and of itself becomes a habit. I know because I've been there. And so, this kind of how to. Listen, this is a how to. But a part of it's also a why. Because without that why, how to doesn't mean anything. I'm going to go and chase a goal without a real reason why. Something superficial. It's not really going to hit me. You could do it, but without a real meaning behind the things that you're doing, you don't really get that same lasting fulfillment from it. Like you could go out and you could buy a Porsche, you could have fun with it. It could be a great ride. It could be super awesome. But derive a lot more sense of fulfillment or self-worth by, going and helping these kids. Why? Because you realize that the reason why I was buying the Porsche is because I wanted to feel, and this isn't anything against people who have Porsches or want Porsches. It's just an example. Sometimes, people go out there and they buy Porsches. When they really think deep down, I wanted the Porsche because I wanted to feel important. I wanted to feel like it mattered. And then they kind of find out, there's other ways I could do that too. And so always start with why. And there was a guy, Simon Sinek, who wrote a book, Start With Why. I really recommend people read that before they kind of set these big grandiose goals for themselves, because we ought to we ought to know why we're trying to do the things that we do. But that's enough. I'm going to stop, talking about this specific thing. Let's get back to the Oroboros thing that we were talking about before. So you have the two snakes. They're eating each other's tails. So it's kind of, the Oroboros forms a sort of circle oval. And so the one of our Ouroboroses, or one of our snakes, represents the emotional connection, the emotional part of why we make decisions. And then the other one represents the thought aspect of why we make decisions. That, I'll do this, then I'll do this, then I'll do this, then I'll do this. Because this is how this is what I think about that. And it's usually not until we take both of them, we kind of use them in tandem, or at least recognize that they exist, to be able to kind of manipulate them in a way that we're able to get to the goal that we have for ourselves. I have a book here. It's called, by Charles Duhigg. It's called The Power of Habit. And I recommend that, everyone read that book, because it talks about the components of a habit. That there's always a routine. There's some kind of trigger at the beginning that gets you to fall into the routine. Then there's the routine itself, and then there's usually a reward for the routine. And the reward is what causes you to go into it. And so he kind of breaks it down, compartmentalizes it, uses a lot of examples on how to explain it. At the end of the day, this kind of description is a blueprint for what we need to do if we want to change a part of ourselves for the better. Okay, let's recognize what the trigger is. Let's recognize what the routine is. Let's recognize how we can change the routine to still give ourselves a good reward, something that'll make us want to do it, and still be able to follow along the path. And so in Charles Duhigg's case, he's talking about, listen, because it takes a lot of work to create a new habit. So he talks about, instead of trying to create a brand new habit, what if we can use one that already exists? In other words, cut down a lot of the work that we'd have to go through and just cut straight to the chase. Because, when you want to create a new habit, you have to create a lot of new neural connections in your brain, and it would be a lot easier to just use neural connections that have already been formed as a way to develop a new habit. It's a brilliant idea. And I couldn't sit here and tell people not to try it, not to use it. But that's really what we have here. And so when we look at any habit that we have in our lives, and we look at the emotions that get us to do something, we'll realize very quickly that we really do make a lot of our decisions because of how we feel. I feel tired, so I'm going to watch TV. Oh, I don't feel too good. I'm going to go to sleep. I feel great. I want to go talk to someone. I want to go do this. I want to draw. I want to write. I want to paint. I want to do those things because they make me feel good. And so very quickly you start to realize, okay, well, here's some fragments. If I'm doing it because I feel good, well, there's a little hint. I'm doing it because it feels good. I'm doing it because I want to feel good. And then those other things that I try to avoid, it's because on some level, they don't make me feel as good or they make me feel bad. And so if we can take that and kind of say, well, if I feel good, I'm going to probably think better thoughts. If I feel bad, I'm probably going to think worse thoughts about this thing. And so then you kind of start to see, okay, well, if the thoughts kind of feed the emotions, they actually also feed the thoughts back. If I feel good, I'm going to have good thoughts. But if I have bad thoughts, I might start to feel bad. What happens if a thought pops into my head that, wait, am I missing 5 cents? Where'd my 5 cents go? And then I look at the guy and I'm like, oh, wait, did this guy take my 5 cents or did this guy take my $5? You know what I mean? And you start to get, a little agitated. Would you get agitated if you made that kind of inference, whether it was true or not? Let's say it's not true, but you still thought it was true. Wouldn't you get mad? Wouldn't you get mad at the guy? See, that's your thoughts influencing your emotions. So it goes both ways. You can have the emotions influence the thoughts influence the emotions. But it's not until we kind of take them both and take them for what they are, then we can kind of start to see, well, there are really two things I have to work with here if I want to be different, be better, be a different kind of person, where I have to take both things into account. And so if I was going to create a new habit, I would start by slowly trying to change the way that I think, and paying special attention to how I feel. If I'm trying to get myself to learn a new habit, to be a studier, to learn how to read, I'm not going to sit here and, as an example, I'm not going to sit here and try to read an entire, 300-page novel in one sitting. Because based off of what we just talked about, I know that if I sit here and I force myself to do that, at some point I'm going to really feel fatigued, probably 20 pages in. I'm probably going to start 15 pages in. I'm like, oh man, this is a lot. And what am I going to start to feel? So I got that thought going through my head. This is a lot, and then I start to get a little feeling of tiredness, which propels my thoughts even more, which repels my feelings even more. It's like, oh, I can't do this. It's too much. It's too hard. It's like, and then they have the emotions reinforcing it immediately. And how many of us do this with things like, New Year's resolution? I'm going to start exercising. I'm going to take up this new thing. I'm going to change my whole life. And so what we're starting to see is that we're really pushing ourselves out of the market of getting ourselves to do something that we already want to do, because we're not thinking about it intelligently. Because if we have this kind of Oroboros, where we have, the thoughts feeding the emotions feeding the thoughts back, then we have to make sure that we take care of both. So in our example of the guy who's trying to, work out, let's say, he would take it slow and he'd take it easy and he'd say, and it's funny because people would, in school, people would think I was crazy for suggesting this. But I would say, I would go to the gym, get on the treadmill for like 2 minutes, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. And then I do that. And then I go home. And they'd be like, what? And I'd be like, well, the reason why is because if I stay on the treadmill for like 10, 15, 20 minutes at the beginning when I just start, chances are that, I might feel great after, but there's a lot of pain in between that. And it's too much at the beginning to kind of get myself acclimated to doing something new, because now I have to rebuild all these, like this willpower. I have to rebuild this new routine into my system. And that can be very taxing on the body, especially considering that we don't already take care of our bodies. We already don't give ourselves the nutrients that our body needs. And so we're already acting at a deficit. And so why would I want to tax my body out even more when it needs coffee just to stay awake? And try to continuously do that every day. It's going to be even harder on my body. And so, I want to look at this intelligently and say, well, if I can go to the gym, spend 5 minutes on the treadmill, 5, 3, 4 minutes on the treadmill, and just do that for a week, 2 weeks, I'll be happy. That's perfect. That's enough. And then the next week, I may bump that up to 7, 8, 10 minutes. And then just go home. And then maybe a month later, I'll add in some light weightlifting. Just a couple. Because when we start to change the way that we see ourselves that way, we really do change the way that we see ourselves subconsciously. We become a different person. Our thoughts are going to change. I went from someone who never worked out to someone who goes to the gym regularly. Hey, I've been going to the gym regularly for 2 months. I've been running a little bit. Now I just started weightlifting a little bit. I'm feeling good about myself. Every day I wake up, I feel stronger. I feel in better shape. And that's really the method or the system that I'd encourage. And sometimes you don't even really need to show it's not about doing something for a short amount of time or something like that. It's about getting yourself to associate the experience, whatever the routine you want to create is, with feelings of good feelings of joy or happiness or fun. And then when you can associate them with that, you take Charles Duhigg's example where the trigger is, I wake up in the morning, that's the trigger, my alarm goes off. The routine is that I want to, get out of bed immediately. And my reward is going to be, I don't know, let's say a glass of water, a banana, or lemon water, or, an apple. Let's say that's my reward in the morning because I love apples, or oatmeal or whatever. Let's say I love something like that. Like I love an apple. Let's just use apple for the example. So every day when I get up, when the alarm goes off, I'm gonna immediately get out of bed and then immediately give myself an apple. I'm training my brain to want to do this, and it becomes fun. I start thinking better thoughts about it. It's like, oh, I can't wait. Tomorrow I'm gonna get an apple, or tomorrow I'm gonna get, because you really have to think about yourself that way, because that's how we're wired. And it works for a lot of other animals. But the point is that it works for us. And so when we think about who we are in terms of, that biology, and we work smartly towards it, it becomes a lot easier to get to whatever point we're trying to get to because we're following the right steps. So that's my example, guys. That's kind of how I would go about changing a part of ourselves. But even more important than starting there, than having the gusto to do it, is to really know why our reasoning is for what we're for what we're trying to do. What change are we trying to bring about, and what? But why do we want to bring about that change? Sometimes you can find out you want to change something, or the reason you're doing it is because you want a sense of love or significance or growth or something like that, and you might find that you actually there's an even easier way to get there once you realize what the issue is. Sometimes you end up finding out that, okay, well, actually, I was going for something I could never get this way. And that can be just as surprising. But that's where I'd start, guys. And, it's hard because we live in a generation that's very, not in an era that's very instant gratification. Instant gratification, you don't really get to kind of, really sit down and kind of work on something, work on changing some part of yourself. So I would kind of challenge you, take this idea and go out there and stick with it for a month, stick with it for 2 months. Don't watch another video about this kind of stuff, about, one other kind of self-help thing. Really dedicate, 2-3 minutes. That's it, 2-3 minutes. You could even do the 1 minute challenge. Just spend a minute, okay? every day thinking about it or thinking about something like it. Trust me, at first it's going to feel like a long time, but think about a change that you want to make, or think about why, just for a minute, and see where that takes you. Guys, you can comment down below. Let me know, what that experience is for you. Just take, for the next 5 days, just take literally 1 minute. Everybody has a minute in their day, I hope. Take a minute, think about what your goal is. Let me know in the comment section down below what yours is, what you're trying to achieve, what you think you can, and we'll get a conversation going about it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy. Peace.